Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews.
Well, forgot to hit unloop the intro, so we're off to a great start. Welcome to another Note to File Live. Today is August 7th. How's it going, Denali?
It's going good. 1 month till my birthday.
Oh, hey.
You know, it's exciting.
What, 25?
Yeah. Yep. It's the one.
Yeah, I guess it's never polite to ask a woman her age, so we'll just leave it at that. But happy birthday.
I actually, for the record, love getting older. It's great. I'm going to do a whole segment on that later.
It beats the alternative.
This is true, but it also is just fucking awesome. So,
I mean, there are a lot of positives. And let's welcome our guest, Zach Gobst. Zach, how's it going, man?
Things are great. How are you doing?
Getting older every minute.
Yeah. We can just make a show about that, how we're getting older.
Aging?
Can I have a reflection on aging?
Yeah.
You can get philosophical with it.
I have like so many little diatribes on this. I could do it, and I would. So you'll probably want to stop me before it's too late.
We'll save that for a Sticky Notes episode sometime.
Okay, I'll put it on the list.
Again, welcome, Zach. Zach is with Leapcure, and I'm going to just jump in like we do, with all our shows. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what brought you to the clinical research industry, man.
Yeah. And thank you for having me on. So yeah, it's this will be 10 years when in Leapcure, and I'm turning 40 in the same year. So
nice.
But yeah, started in clinical research. About 11 years ago, my father had like a small TIA, which is like a small stroke. You don't know, what's going to happen. So for 24 to 48 hours, spent the night in a hospital trying to prepare a doctor to figure out what to do. Fortunately, fully recovered. It was kind of a miraculous, tough thing. But prior to that, I was kind of veered away from industries that I saw weren't going to help me move quickly. I get impatient. I hadn't had a job for more than 2.5 years prior to this 10-year stint, and but kind of found this niche in research. Started out working for a company that was trying to be or working toward like being the Uber of clinical trials. The first, before it was called decentralized, it was essentially sending mostly phlebotomists to homes, but worked across hundreds of indications and really loved the work. That it gave me an opportunity to kind of marry my analytical skills and figure out like what was going on with kind of driving health forward at a high level. And yeah, that company kind of pivoted, but I learned a lot about patient advocacy in a short period of time there, and started Leapcure to kind of just like see like what can I do if I bet on myself to kind of improve the way that advocacy is connecting to clinical trials. Because to me, what the nerdy thing that I was seeing was that advocacy groups were kind of like the early evangelists of research. These are people like dedicating their lives to kind of improving health for different conditions. And whenever we could work with them in clinical trials, like the quality of research was so much better. There would be a virality effect of like letting other patients know that we're also interested in helping research. There are all these great benefits, and the business looked a lot better too. And so we're a little naive saying, oh yeah, we'll just like kind of connect advocacy to research and we'll have like a unicorn like Instagram. It didn't go quite like that. In some ways much more rewarding than I anticipated though, which 10 years later I'm fortunate to kind of see come to fruition. But that was my start. After 10 years, still happy getting at it, not looking to sell or get out, more in a place of exploring how much further I can push things.
Yeah, I like to hear that in a space where there's a lot of people building to sell. So respect for that. Nothing wrong with that, if that's your thing. But I think, again, the people who are in it for the long haul are more likely to have lasting impact, probably. And to that point, I mean, what does Leapcure do?
Yeah, good question. I'm okay at answering that question. Sometimes better than others. It's not always the same answer. So we are functionally, we help enroll patients for clinical trials, but our services have kind of shifted, and the way we do it is structured as what we call an equitable clinical trials company. We capitalize EQ, so there's an empathetic, part of what's important to our business, which is kind of understanding patients, sites, and sponsors, and then equitable, making sure everyone kind of has a voice and there's a fair way to contribute to research. And so our business has evolved from connecting just advocacy groups to digital marketing, digital ad strategy, plus advocacy groups, plus physician partnerships. And we make sure that we kind of understand everyone before we get them involved in research. Sometimes that'll happen a little quickly. And so, on average, we're helping enroll a little over 50% of the studies that we work on average for the timeline and scope we're brought on. We've been at it 10 years, so it didn't start that way. It started out quite not so good. For those who watch basketball, it's kind of like early Steph Curry that was breaking his ankles all the time, and then we figured out how to break other people's ankles a little bit better. We've expanded, beyond just helping enroll through recruitment, also to helping with site selection, protocol design, and we're tinkering with more and more because AI, gives us the ability. Everything that was like, oh, that's too complicated. That's not us. We're like, oh, actually, it's not quite as complicated anymore. And so, in 3 months, who knows what the answer will be. So.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot to go down rabbit holes here. I'm curious about a couple of things, especially as I'm going to call you, patient recruitment company, not to minimize with what you do, but not to generalize too much. But, as a patient recruitment, in the space, do you find, is it frustrating working with sites? I mean, I've seen this and I hear this. I talk to people in that space. I mean, sites are not always great at doing the thing, right? Picking up the phone, making the call.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, closing the deal, chasing the lead. I guess tell me what that's been like. I mean, I think that's probably a thing some sites struggle with, and as a result, patient recruitment companies probably are often frustrated with.
Yeah, early Leapcure was definitely coming from a place of frustration. When we'd find we'd work on an oncology study, right, and we work with an advocacy group specific for the study and find the patient, and the site wasn't available to talk to a patient. That patient isn't just exploring. They're looking for care in a time of need. As we ran the business longer and got to understand sites better, it's less about frustration and more about curiosity of what's going on with this site? Why is this the behavior? Did they sign a boo-boo contract and it just doesn't make sense to have less control? Or did they have experiences with other people sending them patients and it just lost them a lot of money and created a lot of pain? And so, we kind of, we try to anticipate what's going on at that level now. But yeah, early Leapcure was focused on hey, this patient needs to get from point A to point B quick. And right now we're a little bit savvier about, okay, what can we do to help this patient as we figure out what works for the site. That took us 5 years to get better at. So we had a lot of years of frustration before we kind of evolved.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's, again, interesting and something I've seen come up quite a bit because again, sites are all across the board in terms of how good they are. And to your point, like I imagine it must feel frustrating, especially in oncology, a space like that. You got patients who are not just hanging around for like, maybe I can be in a trial. They're like, they're under stress and pressure. You know, they need something.
Yeah.
And to not get them where they need to go, and something you may not be able to control. You know.
So what's the balance then between like the actual like finding the patients, working with the advocacy groups, and then some of that just like more logistic services side of things? Like how do you, what's the balance and breakdown of what you guys are doing?
Yeah. On average, I would say, well, we got to be really good at both, but, and it always depends on the study. Yeah, I hate giving like the "it depends" answer every time. I would say that like sourcing the patient is probably 70% challenge for most, but for us, there's a lot of things in place where it's really the workflow that becomes 70%. So from the outside in, you know, we've gotten pretty good at like figuring out like where are patients, what are they looking for, how do you reach them in the right way.
Well, I mean, I think I love that because I think so often we see folks, and I mean, like you're in the space, like the patient recruitment space has it's a huge gap in our industry, right? So a lot of people are trying to solve the problem out there, and I think the thing that's frustrating to see is when you see folks trying to throw, I mean, like the big one in 2024 and this year too, it's like, oh, we're going to use AI to find the patients, right? But they do that, but that's it. Because that's the cool, sexy thing is to like develop this thing and use AI and find the patients. And that gets you maybe halfway there, and it doesn't actually solve the problem, but it's something that people think is cool and fun and they can raise money on, so they do it, and it doesn't actually solve the problem. So it's interesting to see that like you truly are committed to like not just that, but the unsexy part of it, right? Like just doing the work.
Yeah. Early on, we thought we wanted to take like this venture-backed route. We went through 500 startups. We, you know, did demo day. We got a couple of angels in, and then we started meeting with VCs. And what mattered to them and what I thought was going to be most fulfilling of a journey for me, which is more focused on impact, was really difficult to align. And I was hoping they would kind of get it a little bit more. Like you hear like Silicon Valley is where people want to change the world. Well, it's kind of like VCs kind of are empowered to change the world in like a specific lane. And like we, you know, impact kind of found its way into a different lane for me. And I didn't speak with everyone, and you know, we were early. Yeah. So, but in any case, like, you know, I'd love for some of these AI things to be part of the solution more, but they do have to understand like what's going on downstream. If you're just sourcing a long list, like, and handing off to the site, like what you're shifting a burden there that the site isn't prepared for and is being often negotiated down to not have resources for. So I think they just kind of have to understand like, well, how does that connect to the next thing and the next thing? And hopefully I can help with that. But like, yeah, there's some kind of nascent thinking that I used to subscribe to when I first started Leapcure. So I'm not better than this. I just kind of learned more over time. That like, oh, there's a lot more going on here. Like we gotta figure out how to make it a win for everyone.
Yeah, and I've been on like, I don't know, the site tech side of things for a long time, but I almost feel that's also similar. Like not even just this lane, but anything that's being developed. I think there's a lot of times gaps in the understanding of like how this actually impacts sites, where it's like we're developing this technology, we're developing this recruitment tool, we're doing this thing, being like, no, this is going to be great, this is going to solve your problems, and then you actually see it in practice at the site and you're like, oh, this is just causing you problems, this isn't working well.
Yeah,
but like it's a common across the industry in multiple lanes.
That's right. And I think what's difficult is like, so we started selling through CROs in our first like 3 to 4 years. Now we work primarily direct to sponsor, but also like the way that you're brought in, sometimes there's like a gatekeeper to you understanding the downstream impact. And when you're working through a CRO and there's like so much fun, like a lot of these like CRO project managers are working on, I don't know how many projects, 8 to 10. Like it's hard for you to like really close the feedback loop on like, as a technologist of like, am I kind of driving impact too? You kind of like find the metric you can control and focus on that. And I think that's, you know, what is going to be challenging for like innovators right now with AI is just with the capital markets leading a lot of sponsors to being like, yeah, we don't know how to like scale with our workforce. We're going to trim down and focus, and we're going to let CROs kind of take the wheel to cut on costs. I think these technologies are going to suffer because they're not going to have access to a feedback loop the way they need from a CRO in many cases. There's more and more like smaller CROs that are more collaborative, but I don't think they're the ones who are going to get the majority. Like these sponsors that are making big cuts, they're like, we're going to pick like 2 CROs to get all of our work to save money, and those are typically going to be the ones with that are larger, bigger in reach,
Right.
and treat folks like vendors more because that's what they have the capacity to do. So
yeah, I mean, we definitely feel that on the site side with the CRO, model the way it is. I mean, oftentimes we don't know who to talk to other than our CRA. And that, who knows? I mean, CRAs are busy. They're managing dozens of sites across multiple studies. Like, how much are they escalating with like the nuance that you want to communicate back to a sponsor or a vendor or both?
Let alone, right? Like,
yeah, right. Adding more links in the chain just makes it feel a lot more unlikely any of that's ever going to make its way back.
Yeah.
Well, do you think we're seeing a shift in like the CRO role? I mean, like, I think we saw they were full service for a really long time. Then, I mean, last year sort of reports came out that they were seeing cuts in utilization of full service and being more just like very, more ad hoc utilized. What are you seeing from your perspective?
I think it'll shift. I don't know exactly where it'll go. As a business, we stopped working with CROs except for the ones that let us like basically have direct communication with sponsors, which are not the majority of them. So I don't know the inner workings as closely as I might have 5 to 6 years ago. But I imagine like they're going to be fielding everything, more than usual. Yeah, I'm curious where it goes. I don't know that I have a good answer though.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of in that vein, like you mentioned site selection, which I think makes sense to me. Like as somebody who, if you know where a bunch of patients are, you can probably help make good guesses as to where good sites might be. I guess, is that common from your sort of run-of-the-mill patient recruitment companies? And then also like does that have an impact, or like what is that? I don't know, is that stepping on the toes with CROs? Does that create any issues, I guess, in any way?
Yeah. What creates an issue surprises me all the time. There's going to be like, hey, this is not as simple as I want it to be. There's an issue, which is good to learn from. Going back to kind of the inverse, and then I'll answer your question. Like, so you asked about, do sites frustrate you? There's also the sites that are like amazing and have purpose behind their work in terms of following up with patients, contributing to better research, really making the system work. And it takes us to kind of like say, hey, we're ready to partner with you. We kind of care about your feedback and we'll listen, and we'll get you, the patients on in a way, we're setting you up for success. And so when that is cultivated, that's a big part of that site selection equation that often gets missed. Where the patients are, you can look up real world data, and there's more and more analytics that kind of say, hey, and we can recruit and find patients too. A big thing that I'm an advocate for is actually running recruitment campaigns to do feasibility, because that's closer to your source of truth of who's actually going to consent, who's actually going to join a study. You can have a panel up front of patients say, yeah, I like that design, but who knows if you're actually going to get enough mass. But then at the same time, you need sites. There's a product market fit style challenge. Sites behaviorally have to prioritize this study over other studies, over standard care. That's a big part of it too. And knowing sites that are kind of more interested in clinical trials, whether it's they're trying to round out their practice in a better way, or whatever reason that they are behaviorally to run studies. That's a big part of it as well. Because you can say, oh yeah, like in Los Angeles, we have, all of these patients that have underserved needs, but you can't find an investigator that is actually interested in a
Could
study.
actually engage and do it. Right.
You got to get a lot of things to align. And so that's one thing, like, where, we're playing more of a complementary role. And there might be some CROs that feel like it's stepping on toes. Sometimes it has to do with how the protocol is written as well, because your protocol like says like, hey, you have 25 sites versus like a plus or minus. Then there's kind of a weird pressure about adding sites that the CRO doesn't choose. It gets a little complex, but for the most part, if we're speaking to the sponsor and the sponsor's getting all the information, that's where the good decisions get made. And the CROs can usually adapt, to, around the data that we're sharing on that. So, but it can be uncomfortable for like, oh, this recruitment vendor is, that's how we're seen.
Right.
Is like, trying to call the shots on this domain. That's not easy. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of feedback, but usually sponsors listen to us. We're pretty good at earning trust. So,
well, you mentioned something as well, sort of like, your patient recruitment, but you're now using site visibility, sort of expanding your domain. And you mentioned something earlier that I want to circle back on, which is protocol design. Because when I think of patient recruitment, like, I think there's like, finding the patients and finding the sites who have the patients. But ultimately, I think the challenge in patient recruitment is really started at the protocol design, where you're designing protocols for patients who don't exist. So if you have a 40 INE criteria and you're trying to find the patients, they don't exist. You can't find them. You can't have the right sites. And so I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing in that space, because I think fundamentally, like, that's probably the core challenge in patient recruitment. It's not finding the patients, not finding the sites. It's writing protocols for people who actually exist and will go on trial.
Yeah, there's like so there's eligibility criteria, and then there's kind of like the patient journey, like burden stuff that we have to look at pretty closely before we get started on anything. When we first got started, we're like, oh, send us a synopsis and we'll let you know what it is. Now it's like, no, if we don't see the protocol, like we're not touching it. The criteria can be pretty tough if we get involved. During the feasibility stages, and it depends on the risk, because every sponsor's going to have budgets that make certain assumptions. But if we can get involved early and run recruitment campaigns before they finalize the protocol, we can tell them like, hey, this is what your eligibility criteria is going to do to your timeline. This is what your patient journey criteria is going to do on the patient side. And we can get insights from like investigators or physicians as well to be like, like your investigators aren't going to prioritize this over other things, or they're going to struggle. You might see them like screen one patient every 3 months because of the burden here. And so that's not always the easiest thing to move forward, though. Sometimes they have to like wait and see. But if we get started early, we have data that shows like this is what's up. The way that people interact with the FDA, it might not change anything. So like sometimes it's like, hey, we can tell you what exactly the trade-offs will be that help you get there. If we get started either way, we can still figure out, we've got that extra time of like, how do you get in front of the right patients in the right sites? The more time you have with that, the better.
Yeah.
But I think what the factor we usually find difficult there is sponsor budgets get kind of locked. So like they kind of assume, hey, there's nothing to learn here. You just put in this but the project manager just goes and figures it out. And like sometimes it's like, well, there's just too many constraints. So but
see, that's what I would love to see change, because I think that would make a huge impact on the industry. Like I've seen trials where it's like, this is a placebo eye injection, and it was like, try pitching that to a patient. Right. Like, yeah, you might get a medication. We're going to stick this needle in your eye. You want to join? It's like, not really. No. Like, so it's just sort of like there's some things that just seem off that I would love to be able to use services like you're talking about more readily in the actual early design phases. But
when we do that and there's at least dialogue, like we get studies done on time almost every time. When there's not a shift because of it, that's when it's like, all right, like, we're saying exactly what we think. The advantage of me having done this for 10 years is like, I kind of have solid gut. I'm not always like exactly right on where the timeline's going to go, but I've got a pretty solid gut on like, this is what people are going to do. A lot of it is just anticipating people's behaviors. So,
yeah, makes sense. Do you guys, do you work directly with sites at all in terms of?
We've tried, so we made an acquisition last year, a company called Honeybee, which was focused specifically on serving sites. And we are, figuring it out. I mean, our acquisitions are tough. Like, I don't know. Part of it was to like learn how an acquisition would go.
How's that going for you, Zach?
Yeah, it's well, I think there's so we went in saying like, oh, there's like 5 different ways where like this is a great move to make, and then those ways quickly weren't as rosy as we wanted them to be, and then the profitability, I think, is the thing that we're trying to solve, of serving a site. When you're working with something high prevalence, the sites can often solve it themselves. And so there's like a sweet spot of like, well, this isn't impossible at a site level, but this really helps. Or the site really just doesn't have resources to kind of do these basic things. Typically we're solving such hard problems, and protocols like have the 40 criteria. I looked at one last night that was like 80 criteria. Like it's, the way that digital marketing works, if you're working with just like a small area, the acquisition cost goes up, and sites don't often have a ton of budget for that. It is
what sites aren't made of money.
Yeah. So I think it's like a hard thing to solve at a site level, but we're interested. We're still going to do something with Honeybee and to expand on what it can do. We think that's where AI is going to play a big part of our future. But I would love to have a better answer today. Wait, in 3 months we'll see though. We'll see.
Right. No, I mean that's an interesting. I mean, it's an intuitive observation. It also makes me wonder, like in general, our sites aren't good customers, right? Like that's why it feels like sites aren't going to get a lot built for them, or a lot of direct support, because frankly, they're just not a good customer base to have.
We're trying to solve that in some ways. Today, it's not plug and play for sure. I think that as we evolve our thinking about sites more strategically, and the different ways that we can help them get more in touch with what research is going on, get more studies, the more that they can kind of anticipate a better way to participate in research. I think there's more to add to the value there. But just as like a client for recruitment, that's where, and you being in Oklahoma, it's there might be some areas where it's easier than others based on the size of population, et cetera. But it's something that I'm also trying to solve, haven't cracked yet, but we might get there. Wait 3 months. I don't know.
Fair.
Well, I like that. I think, to Brad, to your point, like sites aren't good customers. I think that depends on what your ROI is and what you're looking for, or where you're looking for ROI. Because I think you're right. If you're looking for sites to saying like, you're going to be my money maker, and I'm going to sell you something, I'm going to get money from you, and that's going to be the good. Like, you're going to be good because you're gonna have that. I think that's a miss. But I think if we, as an industry, can make sites more effective and efficient at doing what they're doing, then there is a significant ROI for the industry across the board. It's just more of a delayed response and less of like I give you something, you give me something back return.
Yeah. And we cut our teeth selling single site projects our first year. And that really taught us what's up, what's broken. But that was like us again with like broken ankles, and like those people are like, Leapcure, what? They're the bum company that and it's so I think like there could be a better way for like sites to get involved with like early technologies. I think that both sides going in that situation just have to kind of have realistic expectation of like, there's a lot of blind spots on both sides. But I do think that as we, when we come back to Honeybee, and the reason for Honeybee is it can help us learn these kind of use cases that we don't want to kind of throw in front of an enterprise customer first.
Yeah.
I think there's an important part sites can play, but they're not. Yeah, they're. I'm not going to build, a clinical trial empire off of a single site. So.
Yeah, fair. All right. So you guys, you've recently started a podcast, yeah?
Yeah, and I want you both on at some point in time. So I'm gonna encourage anyone listening to this to bother both of you to join the Leap Together podcast.
Yeah.
I've loved the endeavor. I had about 12 conversations. I think we've released 5 or 6 episodes, speaking with folks ranging from advocacy to sponsors, sites, investigators, and the look under the hood to see like what really matters to people, why they're in research, what inflection points they had, and kind of a space to kind of express gratitude has all been a part of like how we've tried to structure the podcast. And it's been just this awesome thing. Like people I've worked with for years, these aren't conversations I ever have. And it's been really rewarding to kind of unlock that and share it. And it also kind of enables an opportunity, when people share podcasts to like bring other people into this kind of community of kind of being purpose driven and seeing what you're about. But I had questions for both of you on your experiences. Yeah, I'm year 1 in a podcast. You're the old man on the block, Brad. What's been kind of rewarding to you about podcasting?
Yeah, I don't know. And I think, let's see, I started, was it 5 years ago? Is that what so yep. Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really know if I wanted to do it. A lot of it for me was, I'm really like an introvert. I generally wouldn't get out and talk to people that much, like on my own. A podcast was sort of like a hack to like force myself to do it and also get myself in front of talking to people. I mean, for me, it's been a lot of like a better understanding of how this all works. I mean, especially at a site level, you have this really narrow perspective. Frankly, it's really easy to sort of hate the industry and hate your job, if I'm being perfectly honest, because there's so many, there's so much frustration day to day. I feel like with many things, like the wider your perspective gets, the more you understand, you can empathize. And also like, I do this for my reasons. It also helps me, do what I do every day and not, want to jump off a bridge or do anything, crazy. So, I mean, in some ways it's a selfish reward, I guess, but at the same time, I do think it seems to be useful for others too, just to hear everyone else's stories. And oftentimes, again, it can provide some empathy when we're like, oh, we're kind of all in the same boat here. And so I don't know, I would say, yeah, that's probably the biggest things for me. Denali's like, she's fairly new to doing this too. So I'm curious what you've liked.
I mean, I think the thing that motivated me to get involved in this, when you asked if this would be something I could help, build out a little bit, I think there's 2 things. I think I tend to be very purpose driven in a lot of why I do things. And I think right now in the state of this industry, et cetera, there's a lot of just like the same talking heads that you see all of the time. And so I think using this to be able to have conversations with lots of different people and bringing lots of perspectives forward is really impactful, as opposed to just seeing the same people say the same things over and over again at the same conferences year over year. And so giving a platform for folks who maybe don't always have their voice heard, who have very different perspectives, like bringing those forward, I think is really impactful. And then I also just like I think also as an industry, we generally tend to be like overly, I don't know, self-indulgent and self-congratulatory, where it's like, we're doing all these great things, look at all this. And there's so much that is broken that I think people don't talk about candidly, where it's like, to be able to look at something and be like, that's fucked up, and be able to say that and then have a conversation about it, I think is really important. And I don't think we do a lot of that. As we always have, we're thrilled to announce, or like, look at this great program we're putting in place, which is great. Like you need a balance, but we don't have a balance. So I think providing a format to have that candid conversation and call dog shit when it is important.
Yeah. I love that. I love a lot about what both of you said, Denali. Just like how there's kind of the real journeys that people have, and not always the platform for that, and the interest in hearing from everyone. I think that's one thing that kind of stuck out to me. I'd talk to a few people. I'd reach out to them and be like, "Hey, I want you on my podcast." They'd be like, "Oh, why me?" I was like, "What do you mean, why you? Like, you're doing all this
Why not you?
stuff." Like, people think they have to like have this like title or like near-death experience or whatever to be on a podcast, and there's so much that people can kind of learn from each other that is unrealized. And so and then with what you said, Brad, I think I'm kind of figuring out how it works in my own reward system in many ways too, and how it deepens my relationships with people I've worked with as well. I've gotten closer to a few people who've been on the show, and I've been able to like really kind of like express gratitude toward them in a way that doesn't look like, oh, give me business or something like that. So
I think it also does, it like deepens. You can go deeper then. Like I feel like, I mean, we've had people on we're friends with now, and like again, you can start to like, I don't know, it's weird. It like opens up a little bit of a different world, which I think again, then you can start to learn more. I mean, from each other. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Like, this is like a big, I always say it's like a big, small industry, but like what we do is all connected. Yeah. But it's like been shocking to me how like, I don't know how patient recruitment works. Like from companies, like I have no idea how that works. Like with the CRO and the sponsor, how does it fit in? Okay, well now I can talk to people about it. I can, you know what? I'm going to call Zach and ask him a question.
Yeah.
So it just opens up so many like doors down the road to learn more about what you do. And if you give a shit about what you do, you want to have an understanding of all the pieces, right? Or you should, ideally.
When I think too, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, COVID obviously was a big impetus in that, but I've been remote for the past 5 years, right? Like the companies and, the company I currently work for is, building an office in my city, which is great. And I'll be able to see people, but I think that's also just within the people you work with. And so be able to like establish genuine relationships with folks, like Brad mentioned, like there's people we've had on who like, we have texting conversations about random shit, right? Like it's just being able to like establish those relationships and build the network, which is full circle coming back to when I said I like getting older, a big piece of it. Because you have like, as you have a lived experience, you meet so many more people, and that like enriches your life and provides more perspectives and gives you just a bigger network of folks to like bounce ideas off of or learn from, which is hugely important to me. So I think like this is a great avenue for that, where it's not necessarily people who are always in the circles that I'm going to naturally run with. It's not going to be parents at my kids' school or like people I work with at the company I work with. Like it allows you to sort of really expand that and diversify significantly the perspectives that you're able to have in your circle to learn from, which I think is important. I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah, I love that. Also curious, like in terms of, your relationship with the audience and like how, maybe curious, like what you thought it would be like, with feedback or interactions with your audience, what might be more rewarding than what you thought, less rewarding, anything. Curious how that evolves, because I've got an early audience. I don't know how this thing's going to go. I don't know if my audience will extend past my team too far as well. So I'll be honest about that too. But
yeah, I mean, I am shocked anyone listens to. I have to say, honestly, I've been surprised throughout the years that again, people even give a shit at all. So yeah, I mean, it's been cool. I mean, again, frankly, I would probably do it even if nobody listened to it, just because I like doing it, and I've grown to like it more as the years have gone by, and I've gotten a little more just. For me, it's a little bit of a creative outlet, like in its own way. So part of it is, again, inherently, selfish in a way. But no, anyone, I don't care if you hate it or love it, or, I mean, I care, but like if you're engaging with it, that's good enough, you know, like, cool. I'm just grateful, you know, again, anyone would take any time out of their day to listen to me talk about anything. So, yeah, I don't know. Denali, I know you're still pretty fresh. You
Yeah.
a lot of feedback.
I mean, I think it's similar, right? Like, it's just like I'm some chick in Wisconsin running her mouth. Like, no one should really be listening to what I have to say, but it's fun to just have, you know, it is interesting. It's fascinating. Again, I guess similar to Brad, like, it's doesn't really, like, not that it doesn't matter that people aren't listening or are listening, but it's that, I don't know, that's not necessarily what motivates me to do it. It is interesting, like, having people comment and provide feedback, and it has opened up just like conversations with folks who have listened and been like, hey, I heard this, like, would love to connect. I think that's really cool. Again, it's a way to sort of continue to expand who you know. And but yeah, it's been interesting, but less. I don't think about it all that much, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's good that you're kind of focused on what's interesting to you, and then, you know, it comes out and hopefully it's useful. I think for me, you know, what I've seen already, we made a great engineering hire recently, and like heading into the interview process, he'd like listen to my podcast and like was talking about things that were interesting, and like it was kind of cool that, you know, well, in one ways, I don't want to be put on a pedestal too much. Like, I know I'm on a podcast, but I'm a normal person. Right. But there wasn't that issue. But in any case, it was good to kind of find values alignment faster, because, you know, it's something that's out there, and maybe there were like 5 other people that listened and were like, that's not for me, that weirdo.
Yeah.
But I think that's good, right? They don't need to, you know, go too far down the road of something that's not a great fit. So, also interested. Sorry, I'm flipping the script here. Like a guest that you didn't think would be as fun to have on, but ended up, you know, being more rewarding. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm trying to think of anyone specific. I mean, honestly, like, first of all, I was shocked and nervous when we got Caliph on, you know, the old FDA commissioner. And I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know if it would go well, because this is not exactly the most, you know,
we're not CNN.
It's not very professional. Yeah, I mean, the guy's on like real TV, right? Like, I don't know what. I'm like, he's not going to want to fucking talk to us for very long. But honestly, I was like, I thought it was great, and I was like, really, and not that I didn't think he would be good, because, like, again, the guy is a smart dude. He's been around. He knows his shit. So I didn't expect him not to, but I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised how he picked up on some of like the nuance of things and kind of rolled with it. So, I mean, I thought that was fun. And to Denali's point, I think it's always a little bit of a gamble, because, you know, we're trying to also get people in and on who aren't on all the things all the time. So sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. I think there's some benefit of having done this long enough that I can adjust on the fly if I need to. But the beauty and the downside is there's no like script. We don't even like whatever we want to talk about, let's just talk about it. And sometimes you might be like, okay, well, let's end this thing now. And then sometimes I'd say more often than not, I find that an hour has passed. I'm like, oh shit, that was like,
yeah,
we can keep going.
Mm-hmm. That's what this one feels like, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Denali, same to you. Anything
I'd say
yeah.
It's more so like sometimes you don't know. I think they've all been relatively, I don't know, especially recently. I think we've had any like duds on that have been like, oh, that sort of like fell flat, didn't really work. I think it's always probably different than I expect, especially because a lot of the times, to Brad's point, we're sometimes talking to folks who we've never met before, right? Like sometimes it's people we know and we've had conversations with, but sometimes like Zach, I've never met you before today, right? Like, so it's so you don't really trying to feel out like what it's going to be like, and you just don't know from like a person perspective what people are going to be like. And so I think that's more just like not that it's better or worse, but you know, like sometimes you're like, oh man, that did not go how I expected, or not that necessarily it's better or worse, just different from what you think it's going to be. Because a lot of times it's, again, you're meeting someone for the first time sometimes, and you're like, did not know who this person was going to be, or what they're going to care about, or what they're going to talk about. So I think it's interesting, but I don't know if there's anything like anyone particular who I was like, oh man, that was way different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll answer it for me. I asked
Yeah.
you, and then I'm answering it. For me, when I meet with like investigators, some these people are absolutely brilliant in most situations. We speak with a lot of like key opinion leaders, and in the interview, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome, which I know as a startup founder, I've felt it all the time, and it always pops up. But in the moment, I feel a lot of that. I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about it. And then I listen back, and then I'm able to kind of engage with it.
Mm.
And it's like this awesome opportunity to kind of like help investigators understand their impact with a different lens from other people trying to innovate. That's something right now that's been super cool. And a space, without trying podcasting, I don't think I would ever find. I don't think I'd have too much time with these investigators, to be honest. And how much time they have is another topic for the day. But and I've added, instead of I tried one or two where like the first interaction was right on the show. I've added a screening call to like test how much risk I can take on these for my prep. It takes extra time, and then scheduling's not as easy, and we have day jobs. I don't know. My podcast doesn't make any money for me. I don't know.
We both have day jobs.
Yeah. And so, but I think it's been a cool thing to dive into, and so yeah.
I like the thrill. I don't want to know. I want to know. I mean, frankly, it's more fun if there's a disaster every now and then, right? Like, gotta have a couple of chaotic.
All right.
Yeah, gotta have some chaotic.
I'll turn this way for the rest of the interview.
Right. You should have started that way. Yeah. No, it's probably. I mean, it's smart, right? And again, I mean, when I started doing this for the first like couple of years, I just did straight audio, which was weird, because actually the platform I used, like you could turn the camera on or off, but like a lot of times I found I would turn them off. So like you're talking to somebody without seeing them, which made it a little bit weird of a dynamic. But I often found that like I was having people on again who hadn't really been on podcasts, they're not out there, and like not everyone's great at speaking, or they get nervous, like, which is understandable. Like I think we try to do a good job of making people comfortable, and we're like, yeah, this is just like, just talk, man. Don't worry about it. Like it's all good. And frankly, I mean, it's what's nice about having Denali on. We can just talk. We can talk to each other. So I think that helps a lot. But yeah, I kind of like the fly by the seat of your pants technique.
It's good. Yeah, I think like I was a little bit nervous in my first few episodes, and that doesn't help. So it's like
sure.
So I think time helps with that.
Dude, it's like everything. Like you should. I would look back like every year and be like, "Oh God, what was I doing? Like that was silly. Why was I doing that?" And then, I mean, I guess that's what you want, right? You want to be like always a little. You want to be always a little embarrassed of your previous self, because that means you're growing and getting better at it.
I like that framing. Yeah. Yeah. There's a good amount of embarrassment so far, but awesome. Well, thanks for entertaining the podcast questions. I had a few in terms of being a site and kind of there's a little. I know State of the Union. There's too much to do for sites. And under resourced, and these new things are coming down from sponsors, but. Anything you're particularly optimistic about? Curious about the optimism.
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. I'm actually generally fairly optimistic, as much as that may be hard to believe. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. And I feel like lately, for me especially, I've kind of been a little more heads down than usual, probably. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I hope. Actually, I don't know. I'm just going to say I don't know, because I feel like nothing's really been significantly different over the last several years, from at least my perspective as a sort of smaller independent site. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I was curious about like the new FDA guidance for HCPs that came out, whatever, this year? Or was that this year?
Earlier
In,
this
like,
year.
May?
Yeah, this spring.
I thought that was pretty fascinating and like curious if that could have an impact. I think it could have an impact if it's like implemented in a way that makes sense. But, there's a lot of old FDA guidance that never really got picked up and implemented in any meaningful way. So I'm kind of afraid that might be the case.
He asked about being optimistic, Brad.
Okay, well, I know.
You're just listing up shit that you don't think is going to go well.
If I have to,
that's because everything, like,
I
try to stay in this like equilibrium, right? So like for every like good thing, I feel like, oh, hold on now, because we know how this works. And like, Zach pointed to earlier, like nothing's ever the way you envision it. Like you sort of just get used to that. So I already start doing the thing like, yeah, I'm optimistic, but let me think of 10 problems that are going to keep that thing from happening. Right. So sorry, that's my balancing the scales sort of.
Yeah. I mean,
dialogue.
As a business owner, like it's impossible to shut those ideas, right? Like, when you see change, like you're like, all right, like, we know that it's not all glass half full.
It's being a realist.
Yeah. And I'm a work in process myself. I try as much as I can to be like, write that stuff down, but like try to like look at the opportunities and issues more and more. Cause like, survived 10 years. Like, I'm not being put out of business, and like,
either way I'm going with it. So it's fine. Just keep that stuff in the back of my head.
And you survived 10 years. So happy 10 years from Daniel Perez.
Yeah. Thanks, Daniel.
Didn't bring that up from an hour ago.
Daniel's a legend. Follow him, whatever. But I think like being heads down. Is it that there's just a lot of opportunity in front of you? Is it that AI has shifted things? I have my answers, but because it's felt like more of a heads down year or two for me as well. But curious what you think it is for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things, and a lot of it's our sort of internal shifts in how we're, positioning ourselves. I hate to use fucking broad businessy terms, but like, a lot of it's just
put it in the parking lot, Brad.
Internal changes for me. Maybe let me circle back on that and finding new synergies.
Put a pin in it. We're gonna put a pin in it.
Right.
What level Brad?
And I think there's a lot of opportunities like right now, especially a little bit quiet for a little bit. I think I'm starting to see a lot more pop up, but I don't know. Again, as somebody who, you run a business, man, there's always something. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's been because there's been a lot AI at the site level. I've not really seen any impact like directly on a site level. I've even I begged people to tell me like, what can a site do with AI? And then like there's more people being like, no, you can't do that. You can't put protocol information into whatever. You'll get in big trouble and you'll get arrested or whatever, which obviously is not going to happen. But so yeah, I don't think we've seen that shift yet at the site level. Maybe a little bit on the patient recruitment side, to your point. More people have at least come forward and been like, check out our AI chatbot that will talk to your patients for you or whatever.
So, but here's the thing, though. It's not sites using AI. It's sites using vendors that are using AI.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point, I guess.
Right? Like you're not using AI, but you might be using a patient recruitment vendor, or you might be using, I don't know, any number of things. So like there's vendors who are using AI, but you don't have any sort of like data scientists on your staff to like do your own AI development, right? Like, I think it's a tricky question. Like it's weird.
We just laid off all of our data scientists.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think we have some parallels. I guess, yeah, in our business in a way is meant to integrate best practices into clinical research. We're not the ones kind of consenting, running clinical trials. And so, yeah, for me, I don't know if it's pressure or duty or, I mean, just being a crazy person that thinks of the 10 things that we need to be doing. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting if there's a way to kind of integrate more. So challenge accepted to help sites feel like they're doing more AI stuff.
There you go. I feel like there's ways, but yeah, I'm not. Frankly, I'm just haven't been also not that savvy. Like I'm usually pretty up on new stuff, but I just haven't been as much into the AI space. At least not as much as all the experts I see.
There's a lot of experts out there.
There's a lot of experts, real fast. Really.
Yeah.
I felt the same way about DCT, which I wanted to hit on a little bit, just because you had at least some previous life. I know we're getting down towards the end, but it was the same way. Like there came a lot of DCT experts out of left field, like same kind of thing.
Yeah, and I spent like 10 months in it, and so like I built a business after that. So so I am the DCT expert.
Exactly.
This is why no one should ever have imposter syndrome, because everyone is just making shit up.
No, that's gonna be the title of this when we're done. Is Zach Gobst, AI expert.
AI expert. I mean, we'll have a list of things, I love the idea of kind of like shifting toward DCT. I think just like the way that protocol design works and just practically physician comfort levels, there's all of these kind of like behavioral things that you have to look at. And like if you can get the impact versus complexity right, great, but it's not like baked in because you have a DCT model. You've got to kind of understand the people that are involved. And I think it's the way that people raised money for it. It was thought of as like this kind of silver bullet, and it's more of just like hey, there's a time where this companion can be really impactful, but there's all these complexities. And it's like kind of the nuance. But again, like if you won the deal through a CRO, or whoever isn't just giving you the full feedback loop of what's going on. And there's a culture of like keeping like what's really going on confidential for the purpose of like having trial data. That makes it a little bit tricky too.
Right.
I think that having had a glimpse, and I haven't been meeting with investors a lot because we haven't had to raise money, and I've chosen really not to focus on it. But the way that you kind of get on a treadmill when you take kind of venture money, like the assumptions to me didn't make sense in terms of like, hey, they want to kind of take over and this will be the future. Like it was like, did they talk to enough people that are saying, particularly the physicians, where you don't get research done without physicians, that they're ready for this too? Like just because grandma joined Zoom during COVID doesn't mean like the physician wants to run their practice in like a very new way forever. So
well put.
And then the software you're using, I'm sure, is like had the features, but like I don't know if the training and integration was there. So.
Well, yeah. And again, maybe this is maybe have you back. So I like to dive into some of this, as well as like the concept of, which I think it touches this, and we talked about it a little bit, but the sort of varying impact of like criteria versus patient journey. And, I know I think we're over time now, but like really like in my opinion, I mean, we can argue about this some other time, but like criteria is like the bigger problem. Most patients will do the things. Not that we shouldn't lighten the burden on patients, but like we have patients coming from Texas and Kansas and things like that to be in a study. But I feel like if more people qualified, like, and also then if more people qualified for studies, like more sites would open, because again, like it's crazy to me. I can be working in a IBD clinic, seeing nothing but IBD patients, but I can't enroll a single patient for an IBD trial out of that clinic because they don't match the criteria. These are the patients.
Yeah. And we see like rare disease studies where it's like 1 out of 40 people with this rare disease are qualified. Like it's,
You're making the rare disease patient even rarer.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, you want us to be on Leap Together podcast? I think we have a topic to talk about.
Tune into Leap Together.
There you go.
Whenever, but we can go there too before I take up more slots on yours. I know we might need to wrap soon, but I'm with you on that. I think from my perspective, I'm only making assumptions about kind of what happens in the meetings with FDA, and I hope that there's a way to kind of get everything on the table with AI. Like AI can, because like there are these big risks, but it's like we can't get to that risk yet because these other risks are bigger. And the way we negotiated these big risks, this is what EIE has to look like. And ideally you can like analyze it all and be like, you ended up with like an expected outcome of like, this will never get done. So that's making a lot of assumptions about how it works in rooms that I'm not sitting in. Maybe I need to sit in those rooms more at some point, but I'm not there yet.
You have some of those people on your podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, you did, right? With Caliph. So
True.
But yeah. Well, this is a pleasure. Should I make my own signal to wrap? I feel like
you're an expert now. You know.
Right. I mean, this is the Note to File podcast with Brad and Denali, and I'm your guest, Zach Gobst. Thank you for spending the last, I don't know how much time it's been.
1 hour and 3 minutes.
1 hour and 3 minutes. Also, shout out, I was going to bring this up, but your Of Montreal intro, great choice.
I've seen them a few times back in my younger years.
Yeah.
That's half the fun, is picking out a song. Honestly.
Yeah. It is. Well, we had AI create ours, but now that I know you can get away with like a legit good song,
we go clip them out.
Copyright people to come for us.
We gotta clip them out.
We go afterwards and we clip it out of the stuff, so that way we don't get copyright strike.
Smart. This is for the live. The live people get good music.
The live. That's why that's it. Like if you want to hear some great jams, you gotta tune in live.
I'm in year 1 of my podcast. Maybe next year this will go on our roadmap. But again, I do appreciate the platform and the conversation. It's great getting to speak with both of you.
Thanks for coming on. We'll make sure that you're linked up in show notes. Denali, who do we got next week?
We have Dr. Stamp coming on. Our times are a little bit different. We're just shifting a little bit before and afters based on schedules, but we'll be here on Tuesday with Dr. Manfred Stamp, and then we'll do a sticky notes on Thursday.
Rock and roll. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and Zach, thanks again, man.
Later, guys.
Thanks for listening to Note to File. We're committed to continuing to bring you independent and unfiltered coverage of the clinical trial industry.
We want to talk about what you want to hear. So if you have something on your mind, hit us up at notetofilepodcast.com.